Welcome to the Lost Signals Discusses Film and TV. Using the revolutionary Manzur-Mosi Thurlow scale,
or MONS,
we scrupulously review these art forms with an emphasis on narrative structure. Join us for another entertaining episode.
Hello and welcome back to the Lost Signals Reviews Film and Television. Today we are looking at the newest Marvel outing, Spider-Man Far From Home. I'm Jonathan Ian Manser, here with Rich Perry.
Good evening.
Louis Duran.
Good evening.
And Christopher Morgan.
Hello.
As said, we're doing Spider-Man Far From Home. Rich, would you like to give us the funny logline?
I think we went settled on Spider-Man Saves Europe.
USA! 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 Indeed. So I'll talk about the plot here. Peter Parker, back from being snapped, has returned to school. They briefly touch upon the repercussions of the snap, which was nice, but still leaves a lot of open questions to the terrible things like people who re-emerged mid-air after being snapped out of a plane. People who lost their wife and husband, thought they were dead, married again, only to have the couples reappearing. But nonetheless, this is neither here nor there. This is about Peter Parker taking a trip to Europe, having to face the burden of being one of the few superheroes left on Earth after the end game. And a new hero emerges, Mysterio. And it turns out that Mysterio, as his character is from the comics, was lying about being a hero and faking all of the monster attacks. And eventually, Spider-Man confronts Mysterio. And we find out that Nick Fury has been a Skrull all the time, but not for nefarious purposes, only because he wanted a vacation.
I mean, if you're going to have somebody pretend to be you, I mean, why not use it for vacation purposes?
And welcome back. We forgot to plug in the camera and went off for a second, but I was in the middle of talking, and I'm going to say that what I like about this film is that it balanced a number of different storylines. It kind of, I would say, the meta-narrative of Marvel, which it dealt with both the repercussions of the snap, also what happens now that Captain America and Iron Man are gone. But it also was a simple story about Spider-Man fighting one of its classic villains. You also had a bunch of love stories that some for comedic effect, some for like MJ and Peter Parker finally falling in love. So I don't know. I overall thought this was, they juggled a lot of balls and successfully pulled it off. So I'm probably gonna give it a 3.
I'm going to give it a 3. I guess we'll talk more about what I was going to say about Peter's best friend,
Ned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ian and I were talking precast that he's kind of like the emotional core of the movie, that basically he is in a weird way the nexus of everything that's Peter's personal life and anybody's personal life. He seems to be the touchstone. And I think they did a really good job. And I think that I'm bringing this to the plot because Peter only had to worry about the personal stuff so far, that Ned was his avatar in that. So this way you could focus Peter's character on that stuff, his relationship with MJ and Ned, and Ned got to take care of everything else. It was well handled. Let's put it this way. This would have been a really easy movie to screw up in a lot of different ways. They were juggling a lot of balls. They had all the right people in the right places doing the right things so that other characters could be focusing on Peter focusing on certain things. I think they did a really good job. It's a very, very strong character movie. It really lives on the promises of Homecoming, Civil War, and the Infinity War and Endgame with regard to Peter's character and his relationship to Tony Stark and the rest of the Avengers and his place in the universe. So yeah, I'm getting a very, very, very strong 3.
Yeah, I absolutely agree that this movie was so well paced, and the themes and plot lines that we saw in the beginning flourished and completed at the end. I'd say this is a great epilogue to Endgame, because not only is all the characters are in some way are living the fallout, even Mysterio, Samuel Jackson, Nick Fury rather, and
same thing.
Yeah. I couldn't. There's nothing for me usually when I approach plot is if it could be a little bit tighter, or if there's something that could have been removed or something that could have been added, and I feel like everything was perfect. The legacy that Tony left Peter and the questions that he got in the beginning of the movie, it was still something that he was still battling with up until the end, and probably even afterwards, considering now that he's tagged as a most wanted criminal, accused of murdering civilians and whatnot. So I'd say I can't. There's nothing I can think of to really criticize when it comes to the plot.
True. I'm also going to give it a 3. Great pace was involved all throughout. And yeah, can't really say much more than what you guys already said.
All right, well, I will mention 2 things. I did feel that after the fire elemental they had the fight, there was a slight dip to me, him getting hit by the train was. I understand that he's superpowered. It's just, to me, Spider-Man getting hit by a bullet train or probably would kill him, but it didn't. But there's a slight dip there, but it won me back towards the end, so I'm not going to take points off of it. If anything, I give it a 2.7, but we don't do that, so I'm going to round it up to 3 on this.
To me, that was the part in Homecoming when Vulture basically dropped the entire roof of the factory on him. It's just it was that moment in this film where it's that probably would have killed him, but I'm going to talk about a problem I have with the villain later on, but I understood the motivation, and what I really like about this on the meta narrative is the void that their deaths had left, and the fact that Peter Parker, this movie is really about Peter Parker having to step up to, now he has to be responsible for grow up in a sense, and it's all about that growth of him accepting that call to adventure. He was a secondary player, even though he's a fan favorite in all of the previous things. With this one, he now has to step up and become the new Iron Man, which is the Iron Man is dead. Long live the Spider-Man, in a sense. And if he doesn't, someone else is going to challenge him for the throne. And this is Mysterio, who was a spurned employee of Tony Stark, and with a team of spurned employees to manufacture a superhero. And I'm interested to see if they're going to progress with this later on. And I'll talk more about this in themes, but I think overall it was... The motivation of both Peter Parker and Mysterio was handled very well. And the other thing, because about Fury being a Skrull? Skrull. Is that there throughout the film, they were like, it didn't hit you until afterwards where all these things were. There was just it was nothing winking or jarring or anything, that the level of competence was just slightly below. And you're sitting here thinking, okay, there's this guy from another universe who's fighting these elementals that destroyed his world, and Doctor Strange is not available. I mean, he's just saying, well, what about this? What about this person? What about this person? Not available, not available. And it's just yeah. And at the end, you find out Furier's all I asked you to do is give him the glasses. So it really does kind of make sense. It's just okay, he was just supposed to do this one thing for Nick and found himself in way over his head. It's these little details of this film just mash up.
And the glasses he mentioned were basically an AR AI set of glasses that Tony Stark developed to give to, in a sense, his heir, Peter Parker.
Did they mention it was a multi-billion-dollar or was it multi-million-dollar?
Multi-billion-dollar.
Billion-dollar, right? Yeah. I imagine the satellite kind of is summed
Basically,
in.
he handed the keys of the kingdom over.
Yeah.
Edith.
Yeah.
Even
Edith.
that I'm the
Even that I'm the hero, yeah.
So that's the threes all around.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Rich, you're onto themes.
All right. I think the theme of this movie is people asking the big question, what's next?
Mm-hmm.
You have everyone come back from such a traumatic experiences, half of all life in the universe being wiped out, and then all of a sudden showing back up after you've like just started to move on. And then you have the heroes that you've been used to protecting you for the past 15 years that are just gone now.
Mm.
And people are they're just questioning everything, which made it so easy for Mysterio to slip in and give them that like false hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And his dying words is that people will believe anything now. Like and I think that's I kind of feel like that's Feige like saying like we can do literally anything now after like what we've become.
But it's also, to your point, it always surprised me that aliens exist and now there's proof of them. Interdimensional things. People have been wiped out for 5 years coming back. This would have a profound psychological impact on the population. And the fact that they're finally addressing this, that like now people are ready to, like, you plant anything in front of them and they're like, oh, creatures like ghosts exist. Oh,
yeah.
Obviously they do, because why not? Aliens exist. And I love that. But I noticed in Netflix Marvel they did very well, but like the concept of the Leviathan and that nature abhors a vacuum, in that Peter Parker Spider-Man has to take the reins here. And I'm in grad school, and there's this concept, it doesn't just exist in grad school, but of imposter syndrome. And Peter Parker's feeling that throughout most of this. Like, I'm a young kid, yeah, I have superpowers, but I'm not Tony Stark. I can't.
Yeah.
I have self-doubt. I'm not ready to take the mantle, but you have to, because if you don't step up and do it, and everyone has self-doubt. Tony Stark had self-doubt. As happy he does.
It's like you find himself doubling down on the lessons that he learned in Homecoming. It was like he had greater aspirations when he was younger.
Mm-hmm.
Always wanted to be an Avenger until that time finally came when he's just like, well, I died. And now I'm back, and I just want to focus on my life as a kid, but it's too late at this point.
Yeah, but
like he has to.
If you don't, someone else, and maybe a worse person will take over.
Well, I think a good, to cut you guys off, but to add on to that, like you see that in various scenes, like even Peter not doing anything was going to cause, like, had he not done literally anything, some of his friends would have been dead.
Yeah.
Like that's. And like, the inaction, and obviously the great thing about these movies is that they have yet to say like with great power comes great responsibility. They just show it, and like you see that with like the stakes of the movie.
Because I love how like I think the scene says it all when the water elemental attacks, and he's like, Ned, you got to get them out of here. They're going to see my face, and he just immediately steps into action. Like he doesn't hesitate at all. He's just like, I have to save these people's lives. Make sure they don't see who I am. And just like does his thing.
And what I like about this whole thing is because in Homecoming, Tony Stark was the one who, upgraded, or in Civil War, Tony Stark's the one who upgraded his equipment. Spider-Man wanted to be an Avenger. Tony Stark kept saying, no, be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Endgame, what are you doing here, kid, basically? And then now, it's just like, hey, they may have said it outwardly in the movie, but I just, again, I like I like, all this is really well earned. I think this is the perfect epilogue to whatever phase we're in. Because to Ian's point, you had, or Rich and Ian, what you were talking about before, like in Iron Man 3, Iron Man could not deal with the fact that he had saw aliens, that he actually went through this wormhole, was in space, fell to Earth. Like that his psyche couldn't wrap his brain around it. And you had a whole population then having to do that, and it's just, there's a lot thematically, I think you hit the nail on the head. I'm just appreciating so much now the work they put into the characters. And
well, not only is it a great epilogue, as you said, but it's one of the best bridge movies I've ever seen. In that, what comes next for the Marvel MCU? Can they keep up? Like, they just finished the most ambitious arc of all time. What do they do next? Well, I think that this proved to it what is coming next can be just as engaging, and there's a scene where he is crafting the armor and basically Stark's jet.
Yeah.
And Happy is looking upon him with joy that he's found another Tony Stark in a way, and a purpose in his life. And that even though Tony Stark wasn't there, it was the passing of the torch, and was like a good ending to the first series, but a good beginning for the next one.
So, and I think that this is the way they're going to go. I feel that way, that you're not going to have the exact same dynamic as you had with the original Avengers.
Of course not.
Everybody's going to fill in the spots that they had, as far as you had the fighters and the smart guys and everything, and they're going to just be different mixes of. I think Spider-Man or Peter showed himself capable of being the brains of the outfit while also being more versatile. He was able to I guess what I'm trying to say is he was able to come into his own, realize that he's not going to be Tony, but he doesn't have to be Tony. He just has to be Peter Parker.
And he's also got elements of Cap in him, because he has that humility. Mm-hmm. He has that thing where he wanted to be more than he was, and now he knows what that entails, but he also knows who he is at the same time.
And he's got the narcissism of Bruce Banner. So he's basically all the Avengers in one.
So before we move on, there's, the one theme that, it's pretty glaring, but it was great because I saw it so frequently in the movies, but just the concept of legacy. Outside the scope of even mentioned this, we just watched the most ambitious superhero movie, and it took 10 movies for it to kind of set the tone and create the plot. Now this is the epilogue of that, and it has to be better not only to the previous Spider-Man movie, but has to get people in the seats for the next phase. Mm-hmm. And I think they did a great job. Peter living in the shadow, people asking him, do you have plans to save the world? How are you going to be the next Iron Man? He's seeing all these murals that it's a constant reminder in the background. Mm-hmm. You see him, and you see some reference to Tony. But then you also have the legacy of Mysterio's software that he developed, that Stark used as what they say, as a therapy session. And that was the driving force for him. That set him over the edge. And other people as well, the lead, the second in command. Also, everybody that was spurned in some way or another.
Well, the beauty of that is it goes back to Iron Man 1. You see Obadiah Stane again, chewing out one of the employees.
Yeah.
So really.
Well, I think that also goes to show that they use that. Did a good job of using that to show both sides of Tony's legacy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You had the infallible hero that everybody saw him as, they were building him up to be. Then you also remember that he was kind of an asshole.
He was pretty ruthless,
and a lot of the technology that he has was not his that he built. He had a lot of things were his, but he also took the best ideas from what was built up in his company and incorporated them into his arsenal.
And discarded them.
Yeah. And if anybody, with Beck, if anybody's just hey, that's my...
This is actually a good transition into the antagonists, because I just want to say that because in a sense the motivation of Beck was the motivation of every single Iron Man villain, especially in the third one. Mm-hmm. Was I'm just trying to... I was trying to be you, and you just discarded me.
Right. I love how the story of whether or not Peter was going to be the new Iron Man ended up with him fighting one of Iron Man's, what would have been one of Iron Man's villains.
Yeah. What I was going to say, this really is, this is all in a lot of ways Tony's fault, because even because we were watching Homecoming before we went to see it, this one, and there's that part where Peter's talking to Vulture and saying like, "Hey, you're selling all these arms," and he's like, how do you think Stark made his money? How do you think they made?" And it's something like Fury said in the Avengers. Remind me again how you made your family made their money. It's definitely. I like the fact that they're always reminding you that like, hey, there's all this great stuff that Tony did. Yeah, but guess what? Tony also did. Like he was an asshole, and his family built and sold arms, and
it's perfect scheme. He creates the villains that he needs to fight and become the hero.
Profit.
That is.
He's basically unintentionally doing the exact same thing that Mysterio was trying to do.
Exactly.
All right, so is that one's all around?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely for me.
So now that we destroyed Tony Stark as a character, let's talk about Mysterio. Louis.
So I got to say, I watched this movie twice. The first viewing, I was just skeptical mainly on Beck and Gyllenhaal's interpretation of him. Well, having never seen him on the live action, I'm only thinking about the comic book and the animated series. But I really warmed up to him the second viewing. This was like a great villain, and I was worried when they first announced Mysterio because there's just. I was hesitant with Vulture as well until they cast Michael Keaton. Mm-hmm. And then when they say Gyllenhaal, I was like, okay. And I love the angle that they went. Like, I love the fact that, he had a team around him. The bar scene was a little over the top, but it showed that he was a little unhinged. And then it just carried over. And I gotta say, the fight scene too, everything about it it was Mysterio incarnate for me. Like, this is the quintessential one now. And I really hope he's not dead, because I would love to see him again. And have like a team up if they do Sinister Six, and have him as one of the villains. It definitely succeeded for me, just to show the stakes and like the planning, just all around, just the design of the character too. Is just
actually the first time I had watched him, I was like his delivery was a little stiff and like it was awkward, and then like the bar scene, as soon as he just drops the whole act.
Yeah.
And you find out that it's because he was bullshitting everybody.
I do like he had nuance too, because he was actually, you could tell that he was actually being genuine with Peter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was setting him up.
Oh yeah, that little bit, at the end of his speech, he's just like, and to Peter Parker, that poor kid. Like, he really hated the fact that he had to use him like that.
At some point, it wasn't shown in the movie, but it had to have happened. He's like, let us create a bunch of AR or VR sequences where I die in order to potentially trick Peter Parker into thinking I'm lying, they're dying, so I could sneak up behind him for one last blow. Now, they also said that how this is going to happen is that the drones I'm using are going to shoot me in the stomach. So I'm going to be lying along the wall so we can make sure. That's the thing is, I knew watching this I had to have a suspension of disbelief. Mm-hmm. But it got to the point when there's no way he pre-filmed all of the fake scenes. Up until even the really complex one where he lured Spider-Man into a trap and sent him into the thing, I'm willing to buy. All right, we're gonna have him. I'm gonna kick him out and make him drop down onto this car here and put like glass daggers that go into it. I'll buy that. Even the toys. I don't know how he knew Spider-Man's original costume, but whatever. But there's a point that it broke my suspension of disbelief. And I'm going to punish you for that.
The reason he could know about that is because of all the YouTube videos of Spider-Man with his old costume.
Here's the thing. They could have dropped one line in there that I'm using Edith to help me develop these, but they didn't. They set up their rules that he spent a lot of time pre-assembling all of the scenarios, and then ones later that he used, which he could not have foreseen.
Like the old costume I can buy because I mean that would be like Rich said it'd be common knowledge. It's the third time I've done that today. Yes. And again to that whole, and we were talking about this precast, that whole illusion thing that he put, the gauntlet that he put Peter through with the zombie.
Plus, wait a second.
But what I was going to say was I've seen that done 100 times in cartoons and comic books, and it's always been done well. This is the first time I've seen it done live action really well. But also,
who's to say he didn't use the tech that Tony developed that was able to call from his memories of...
Well, they never show him in the Iron Spider suit, right?
What?
In the memories? Or not the memories, but like in the illusions?
No.
See, there's a lot I'm willing to buy. There's a lot I can rationalize. But there are scenes at the end which... I would be lying to myself if I said I believed they pre-filmed those. So I'm just.
I agree.
Well, the way that they set up accusing Peter, also seeing that they had loose ends that, in case something went wrong, they knew to do something.
I'm kind of cool with that because they showed the scene with the guy collecting the data. That tells me, okay, you set up the rules that someone could have manufactured this later on, but there. Especially in the final battle scene, some stuff that happens, which I'm like, yeah, we did not plan for this to happen. Sorry. It's just a nitpick of mine, but it's a very good movie, but it brought me out of it for a little bit.
I'm going to say I'm coming out on the inside. And the reason I brought that whole up about the illusion thing is because I really wanted to give credit. We said it precast. I want to say how really wonderful that part was and how many times you've seen that. Batman the Animated Series and a bunch of other things, and it was done so beautifully in this live action. But I agree with you. Maybe in subsequent viewings, but Gyllenhaal, once he made that turn to Mysteria, or when he turned out to be who he was, I felt that he was a little over the top. And I agree with Ian that there's a couple of little plot holes towards the end, the final battle.
This movie focuses so well on details of almost everything in the Marvel Universe, whether it's dealing with repercussions of the snap, as I mentioned previously, or dealing with like the relationships that it just, because they're so good in all these other aspects that I find this so glaring.
But yeah, I agree with you 100%. So I'm
Well, I'm going on a 1.
I mean, how much of that has to do with the antagonist, though, instead of style?
But it's built into the character of the villain there, and that it's an aspect of the villain that's really important to who he is as a thing. I love the update technology that was involved with it. But they set up rules and then didn't obey those rules. And that's why, I'm not going to go into the whole diatribe about it, but it's my thesis. So you guys giving ones?
Yeah.
I'll get a 1, yeah.
Okay, Chris. What's your thoughts on Peter Parker?
Oh, I thought Ned was the protagonist. No, okay. Peter's great. I mean, there's Tom Holland and there's no looking back. I'm not talking about animations or anything, but Peter Parker is great. He has a perfect blend. I think we were talking about it like during themes and so forth, where he has that perfect blend of trying to be a teenager who wants a normal life. Because all the way through, he's like saying, all I want to do is go on vacation. It's just like he's been through, what he's seen and what he's done, and then being gone for 5 years. It was an instant to him, and having to rebuild his life. He was lucky enough to have his aunt and his best friend and the woman he loves all conveniently disappeared. See, this is
the girl he likes.
Yeah, and it's stuff like that when we're talking about like the intricate details in the movie, and then things you're about to suspend disbelief for, but he's lucky enough to have his life back, and all he wants to do is go on vacation. He wants to be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, but as one of you said before but when the shit hit the fan, he tells Ned, keep them, go get them to safety. Nobody can see me. I mean, he is just, he is like, this is one of these characters this is one of the times where I'm going to say he's the perfect protagonist, like the absolutely perfect protagonist, written, performed, like soup to nuts, I think he's wonderful. I mean, I don't think there's anything I can say, but I'm giving him a very strong one.
To everyone who says that Tobey Maguire is Peter Parker, no, sorry. Tom Holland has proven time and again that he is Peter Parker and does a phenomenal job of being charming and awkward and a nervous wreck and nerdy, but a hero. It's wonderful.
And what I liked about his character is he brought that out in, was able to drop MJ's facade, because MJ is very acerbic and she's standoffish. Like even at the in the last film, she's just like, "Oh, my friends call me MJ," and Ned's like, "I thought you said you didn't have any friends." It's like she's got that very standoffish thing. She's kind of like this rebel without a cause kind of person. But when she finally gets one-on-one with Peter, she's just as insecure with him. Mm-hmm. So like she's got her own facade that she's in, and the dynamic between them is really, really good. And I'm kind of leaning over supporting, but it is just to bring forth like what Tom Holland brings to this, how this character is written and how well they do with this character.
And he actually does a really good Robert Downey Jr. playing Iron Man impression. Like at times he does channel that energy and like the charm that he had in Iron Man.
Yeah. Really, I love when he geeks out and like has a motor mouth going.
Oh, when they were talking about the multiverse, that was one of my favorite parts about him. Like it's little moments like that that really capture just how well Peter Parker's written and how Tom Holland can deliver it. Because this is as much as this is a Spider-Man movie, this is a Peter Parker movie. Whereas like also, you feel the angst, like teen angst rather.
And like I love the it shows how good of a person he is. Like when he flips out on Happy and then immediately apologizes, he's just like, "I'm sorry, I'm yelling." It's just like I really screwed up, and he can't even go off on somebody and like put his shit on them. He's just like, "No, let me take that back. This is on me." And
he has the balls to ghost Nick Fury.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say, but that is completely in keep. Again, this is completely in keeping with like. I wanted him to ghost Nick Fury. I wanted him to ignore everything and worry about MJ.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was, you felt Tom did such a great job. You could tell that the character felt the weight of everything. Not only like just wanting to go on vacation, have a school trip. He just got snapped back. It's been 5 years. Tony's dead, and now he's gifted these glasses, and the first thing he does is just tries to delete a compromising picture. Like it's all in the character that shows you that he's not ready for this kind of like responsibility. But Grant, when given the opportunity, he'll step up and do it. Mm-hmm. And he'll probably he'll feel bad, that he couldn't do more or something like that. Like it's just
he won me over as perhaps the new face of Marvel.
Yep.
So
it's a very strong one for me.
Yeah, one.
On to me with supporting. I'm shocked by, I don't know if it's the actors and actresses or the direction, but everyone in this movie had great chemistry. You believe the relationship between Happy, Aunt May, and Peter Parker. You believe Peter Parker and MJ, the looks they give each other. Even what's his friend's name again?
Ned.
Ned and Betty have one of the most accurate summer flings I've ever seen portrayed
for teenagers. Yeah.
And they're perfect for each other, actually. Like, but it's charming. It's funny. All that they do, like all the interactions, perfect. Even like Flash. When he got snapped as well. Goes back 21 because it says on his ID.
Yeah,
but then they just called out for it on the plane. Like, no, you can't drink.
I don't even know her.
But the two teachers in there, there's. But the thing is, Ned was really impressive because really he had to carry a lot of the comic weight of this film. and he did a phenomenal job. Yeah, there's some misses here and there, but overall his performance is great there.
I love how he's just like, he was all about getting everybody out of danger and into the opera, and then Betty immediately drags him back into it. And the entire time he's just like looking over his shoulder and like trying not to alert her to anything that's going on.
But that was what I was saying about Ned before, is like him being the emotional, because he kind of had to be proxy for Peter, because Peter had to live this double life. Okay, but Ned's got to like take care of Peter, take care of MJ, take care of Peter and MJ's relationship, take care of the class, worry about Betty. I mean, Ned had, in his own way, not earth-ending, but in his own way, he had just as much weight and stress put on him as Peter did.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fucking brilliant.
Well, I love the one line that MJ says, like, "Wow, you guys really lie. Like, you guys are really quick, like, very easy, like, just to lie," or something variation
like,
of that.
It's just like, you guys lie very easily.
Yeah,
lying is very easy to you guys.
I was just like, wow, yeah, that's
It's like, call May, tell her to call them, and tell them that I was staying with some relatives in Berlin. Got it.
It felt very much like a John Hughes film at times. Yeah. And
that's what I love about these Spider-Man movies now.
Well, they should be in high school. Like all the other ones we've seen, it's half an hour or an hour, and then they're adults all of a sudden.
Yeah, they couldn't wait to get them out of high school.
There's so much drama seriously. That you can really do in high school.
And that was one thing I was afraid they were going to lose, that I loved so much about the first one. I was afraid they were going to lose that in this, and they went farther on it. But it just occurred to me, Ned's kind of like, if Peter's the new Tony, then Ned's definitely the new Happy.
Oh,
because he was the guy in the chair. What was it from the first one?
Yeah, the guy in the chair.
And now he's taking care of all the logistical bullshit that Peter doesn't have time to take care of. Next thing you'll know, be proposing to MJ for him. Actually, because that was Happy who did care of that.
Yeah, now that I think about it, had they done it for Ned to do that, that'd been
it wouldn't have been broken. But yeah, can I say that I love the fact that, because so many times you see the scene where like the hero has to leave and he leaves the girl and like she just stays there and like stares at, like watches him run off and like, I love the fact that like instead of staying with Brad, like MJ just gets up and immediately follows him out of the opera. She's like, no, I want to see what he's up to.
The fact that she brought a fucking mace to the battle, like, yeah, I brought a mace.
I thought maybe I could help. Like, you could use this.
Well, when they're on the bus, she was like, "Yeah, nothing looks normal right now. Like, we should probably get the hell out of here."
Everything felt very real. Everything. There's no kind of stock characters in a way.
I don't see it. There weren't.
So I'm thinking about the scene of her pulling the mace and like Happy's just like.
Yeah, nobody was really. Well, the supporting cast, I can't see that anybody was really stiff. I don't know, Talos and. Maria Hill and Nick Fury, the way that they were able to, just like the little interactions you saw, and the way they were able to pull that off was really.
Now, upon watching it a second time and knowing that they're scrolls, do you notice the difference?
Yes,
absolutely.
Because I was like, during the whole movie, I was just like, I don't know, these two seem off.
I thought
like
they were
Nick seems a little off. Like he's not really.
Yeah, I thought maybe
it's that uncanny valley.
Yeah, he's like a little. Yeah. He's usually a little bit more guarded. But then, like, watching it again, he's got the same swagger that Talos has whenever he's doing any... Like, whenever he's pretending to be somebody, he still has that little bit of that swagger.
That's a fantastic performance, then.
Yeah.
I was going to say, when I was watching it, I was like, Sam Jackson, like, phoning it in? Like, is he just trying to be a little looser now or something?
Yeah, because it's
Fury? Like, I'm not really getting it. And Maria Hill was... She was, like, it was just... it was just off enough.
Now that I think about it, like, Maria Hill usually talks more.
Yeah, she
quips a lot
off
more.
enough.
Yeah, she challenges him too.
Yeah,
and the funny thing is, he at one point, Mysterio, I can't remember the Drake,
Beck,
same thing, whatever. Where he's just like, saying that, Nick Fury is like the most paranoid person on the planet. Which has been said.
He's the most paranoid. He's sometimes the most paranoid and most dangerous man on the planet.
Yeah, and he's coming off as none of these things. Yeah. I mean, like you said, he's got the swagger, and I'm like, this guy is in front of you. How are you guys? I'm like, I love this movie, but I'm not buying the fact that these guys can't pick up on this shit. And then when he got to the end, I'm like, okay, everything makes sense now.
Because like a couple of like seeing them, like seeing it again, and like seeing the looks that they gave each other, like every time like Beck says something, I'm like, I've never seen these two like that.
Yeah.
Like that unprepared or that confused.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and then on that, I'm going to give it a 1, but on everything else too. Like it's a really well done supporting cast. All you guys got ones?
Yeah, 1-1.
Yeah.
All right, Rich, talk about the dialogue.
The dialogue was really strong in this one. Especially like, I don't know how much of it with the, especially between Peter and MJ was improvised or actually written in, but the way they acted the dialogue as these awkward teens trying to get like, every time Peter was talking to anybody, like he sold everything that he was saying, especially when he was freaking out about not being ready to be Tony Stark.
Mm-hmm.
Like I always love when he loses his shit and just like has enough and like finally just unloads. And of course the Peter tingle is going to be stuck in my mind forever now. It's just like
great.
And like the of course like JB Smooth and his other teacher, like everything out of their mouths was hilarious.
Do any of you
When you're in Rome, do as the Romans do. When you're in Venice, your socks get wet.
I was laughing fairly consistently through this film.
I'm gonna be a cool teacher right now. Seeing people in bathrooms, you cannot do that.
Yeah.
Like you gotta just stop.
That's weird.
It's weird.
It's weird.
Actually, one of my favorite, I think Peter says, "I'm by the friendly Spider-Man." Nick or Scroll Nick Fury goes, "Bitch, please." Even in space. I mean, overall, this was, I think, a very strong script, and as you mentioned, acted very well. I'm giving it a very strong one.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have hit it really on the head. There's not much I can really add because for me, it's just all about remembering different things and how we can just talk about different lines and still share the humor and still laugh about it. It's just how well this was written and how great it was performed too. That's really the great thing about it as well.
Well, that's why I mentioned the John Hughes angle, because it's charming and funny, and like it's not trying too hard to be funny. It's just naturally that way. That's why I love.
No. Please talk.
But so I like them. I'm enjoying the ride with them, and I'm laughing with them. So
I'm sorry, I got really excited because I just thought of another thing that twigged me that's my. I'm like, what the hell is Nick Fury doing with the dart gun? Where he like basically wanted to dart anybody, and at the end of it, he's like, next person comes in, I'm going to shoot.
He said next. If another hand touches that door, we're going to be setting up another funeral.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. That was about the only Fury thing, because people would come in and he'd bring up I mean, you would think that he'd be 1 or 2 steps ahead of that.
I thought honestly, if they had taken it the other way, where like he just continues to shoot everybody that walks in that door, so that Peter's just piling up bodies just out of view.
I'm sorry,
I thought that was going to happen. Actually,
me too. Yeah. I didn't mean to cut you off, but all of a sudden I got really excited. I'm like, oh yeah, there's another scene that.
How many of those darts do you have?
I didn't go in expecting this to be as much of a comedy as it was, but it didn't detract from the drama either. So,
no, yeah, it definitely didn't.
Right. So, Louis, style.
I love the style of this movie. When I first heard Whitney Houston being in, I'm like, all right, what's going on here? I was like, we're really gonna start with it. And then the memoriam thing, I forgot how hilarious like the school announcements were. That was a great way to train. And just like the blip is the blip of all things. Like we've been calling it like dusting or the snap, and like no, like they've settled on the blip, which is very, which is a very, it's just a strange. Like it was just so bizarre, but they took something that was very serious, and they made it funny.
Yeah.
But moving on to like. Just everything, like from the Mysterio illusions to how the drones were done, how the elementals looked. The Spider-Man suit at the end was so fucking cool.
I love showing I guess, what would it be? Whatever, before they put like the color and everything on it. Like the armor weave. Like as they're like sewing that. And you see them like playing the colors in, like it puts the eyes on, like all that shit.
Yeah, and I gotta say, there were some really great shots. I'm assuming they shot on location because I'm pretty sure like there were some set bits, but they made sure you can tell like you're in Prague, you're in Venice. You can feel like how these cities are, living in their own way. What was it, in Prague with the festival?
Yeah.
Like that was very well shot. Like the lighting, there's some shots where like I've mentioned already a couple times where like there's murals. Like when they're in the classroom, you see like murals in the back, like drawings of Tony, and like there's candle vigils. There's just so much to this. Like I can't really remember so much soundtrack wise. Like music, I usually like to follow the music.
I loved all the songs,
but I don't quite remember most of them. But I'm not saying I'm not saying it. It'll take away from the score, but
I want to say about the morning announcements 2 things. I like how they kept the continuous thing where they're not quite adept with the switching the green screen off. You get the flickers.
Oh, yeah.
And to something you brought up before, Rich, about the Getty image that you see the watermark. It means that they did not buy that Getty image. They ripped it. I'm sorry. That was just like another minor detail that was just.
Oh, yeah, the details.
I gotta say, like, I want those two to continue doing announcements. Like, hopefully those two get their own show, like, after they graduate. So they continue to, like, each Spider-Man movie after that, they continue to have them, like, saying something.
I'd be excited for morning announcements.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
That they
Shit's
never
crazy.
quite looking at the camera correctly, or
Do it.
Jason, no swearing.
Yeah.
It's like the last day of school.
Have them on a new show with J. Jonah Jameson. So it's like you've got the high school MSNBC or CNN or whatever, and then you've got Infowars over here.
Alex Jones, Jonah Jameson.
Yeah.
I love it how it's a dot. Like, the little touch .net. It's so perfect for what could happen. But we mentioned the details that went into this for both the overarching story of Marvel and for the details. And I don't know. It's whoever directed this.
Same guy who directed the Homecoming.
Yeah, did. This may be my actual favorite Spider-Man storyline when it comes to movies, because it was just so much fun. Even though the villain had his fault, but like stylistically, and how in touch it is with high school. It worked. I don't know. Worked really.
Yeah,
well.
it's very grounded. I felt like I was back in high school again with some of the things. I was like, oh god, you really felt how cringy it was that. You remember
especially him tracking down the glassmaker. It's like, going out of my way to get that perfect gift for the girl I like.
When he was going through the plan, I was like, oh no.
Part 7, don't do any of it.
Yeah. But no, really, I the detail was really is what kind of like it definitely won me over. Just every little thing when he was with Happy on the airplane, and he was starting to design his suit, just all the little things he was pulling apart, doing the math and doing
the same arm motion that Tony did in the first one.
So there's a critique about the Marvel universe that it's almost like automated belt where they just churn out movies. But this actually felt like there was a craftsman who's been working on this world for a very long time. So they know the details they're putting into it and how to like sew everything in perfectly. And this felt that way, and so style, very strong one.
Yeah, and
one for me.
And to the music, Michael Giacchino once again knocks it out of the park. I love that man. He does like 300 movies a year. I don't know how he ever sleeps, but no. And they're all like he does all the major block, like so many movies like per year. It's just ridiculous. And I really I liked how they brought the Ramones back in the middle of this one, but I loved the closing song, and it was Vacation by the Go-Go's. I'm like, yes.
I still love the Notebook doodles that they use to close out each movie.
Yeah. I mean, the Spider-Man, these 2 Spider-Man movies are just, they're, I mean, this is probably why I probably did deduct points, that may have been scattered to the antagonist, because I think even for a Marvel film, like these Spider-Man films are like such a high bar to clear. I mean, even more so than any of the other ones. This is like 1 and 2, boom, boom, both awesome movies. I don't think you can say that about anybody yet. Well, it's a wait and see on Black Panther, see how Black Panther 2 comes up. But as far as like I don't think Captain America did that with the first two. I mean, right off the bat, boom, boom. These two are just like set a really, really high bar.
Yeah. What I love the best or the most with these Marvel movies, more often than not, they'll find a person that has the vision. It can capture not only the character, but the style of like what makes the character so like these characters and heroes so great. And with these two Spider-Man movies, they nail it on the head. The only thing that's lacking, and Rich might actually, you might, since we've read a little more Spider-Man comics, like the only thing that's lacking, which it's going to hit us like a freight train, is the tragedy.
Yeah.
And we haven't really seen tragedy yet, but it's come due.
Is it going to be Aunt May, or is it going to be Happy? I mean, it happened with Tony Stark.
I'm thinking maybe Ned.
Ooh.
Oh.
That would be heartbreaking.
Oh, no.
Because in the comics, Ned Leeds becomes a hobgoblin. So we could see... Could you imagine like the tragedy of their friendship breaking down?
Well,
to the point
if it is Norman Osborn as the big bad of this arc, I could see a lot of tragedy befalling Spider-Man before the end of it.
Well,
Okay.
now that his
Thanks for
identity's
bumming
out.
us out,
Yeah.
man.
Now that his identity's out, that's already he's got a bullseye on front and back of his head.
the real tragedy.
Aunt May.
The real tragedy is that Marvel only has one more movie.
Yeah.
There it is.
Sony, if you're watching this,
The real. We'll go back to antagonist, but Sony.
I'll give it a one.
I give credit for Sony for being bold and allowing the MCU to do it. And they made a ton of money off of it.
Yeah,
But I'm hoping they don't get greedy.
Yeah.
That's,
Plus, they did. I'll give them credit for Spider-Verse.
Yep.
So,
well,
maybe
So
they
one
must
for me
surprise
style. If we want to go back, one for me. Is it ones all around?
yeah.
Mhm.
And Chris, I think I know the answer to this already, but would you recommend?
Yeah, I may have jumped the gun in saying that, yes, this is a very high bar to clear. And they really, 1 and 2 got all the elements right for whatever nitpicks I put on it. And they are nitpicks. And the only reason that they're nitpicks is because they were glaring in a film that is otherwise to the most minute particle fucking perfect, for lack of a better, but yeah, I'd highly recommend this. I've enjoyed the hell out of this film. I'm looking forward to seeing it again.
I definitely recommend it. I mean, seeing from the scale that we went from Endgame to going to putting like a microscope on just like Europe and like cities in Europe and having it really, like, even though Mysterio said at the end, like, it's, world ending or Avengers level event, to see Spider-Man step up and take him out pretty much single-handedly was just so great. Like, if you saw Endgame, you have to see this movie. Like, this movie has, for me, kind of shoehorned its way into the top 5 of like all the best
I agree.
Marvel movies.
Uh-huh. Me too.
So absolutely recommend for me.
Yeah. If you've been along for the ride, for even just the Spider-Man movies or for the entire MCU, this one is definitely one you have to check out, especially to see where things are headed.
Okay, so I'm looking at this through different angles here. If you're a fan of the MCU, obviously you're going to see this. I think Spider-Man fans, which you two are, and I am as well, to an extent, I think that this qualifies for a good Spider-Man film. I think it does justice. I think if you're taking your kids to see this film with no knowledge whatsoever of the MCU, I think you might be confused by Mysterio, but there's enough of that kind of the joy of being young in this film. In fact, it's almost as if Mysterio is an afterthought in a lot of this. It's really about Peter Parker going on an adventure and dealing with the repercussions of it. I think having no knowledge, you can enjoy the film still. So many of it, actually one of the stronger, especially since Marvel is getting so interwoven that you can't enjoy Infinity Endgame without having seen certain prior movies. You can go in this blind and probably enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I agree.
So I'll read out the scores. Rich and Lou, you give it a 10. Chris and myself give it a 9, giving an overall score of a 9.5, which I think is right around what it is on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Overall, I think, though, I agree with you, it's one of the better Marvel movies. And considering that after, 26 films, I can still say now, like, this one's on the higher echelon of, that's...
I liked it better than Endgame.
And it's a sequel, too, so a lot of the criticisms that we had in the Marvel movies were the sequels.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean, is it's like, Captain America, The Winter Soldier is probably is a great movie, period, in discussion. Definitely, top 3 Marvel films, but Captain America 1 was a good film, but, the other part, this came out, Spider-Man came out strong and continued strong.
I still don't think they made a bad film yet. I think they made mediocre ones. But
I agree, yeah.
But anyway, any final thoughts?
No.
I'm very...
On that note, I am Jonathan Ian Manser, here with Rich Perry.
Have a good night.
Louis Duran.
Have a good night.
And Christopher Morgan.
Live long and prosper.
That's nuts.
Thank you for joining us.
Editing and engineering by Christopher Morgan. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates. Or mods?